Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the ZSE webinar on the topic investing on the ZSE. So you will notice that this webinar coincides with the Global Money Week, and the Global Money Week is running under the theme, Plan Your Money, Plant Your Future. So this theme is basically focusing on raising awareness on the implications of individual financial behavior. So my name is Edwin Mutami, and on behalf of the ZSE, allow me to extend our gratitude for you taking your time to be with us during this webinar, taking off your time from your busy schedules. So first of all, let me introduce the speakers for the day. We have got 3 speakers for this panel discussion. My first speaker is Ms. Sandra Mnyoro. Ms. Sandra Mnyoro is the Business Development Officer in the ZSE markets here at ZSE. She has been quite instrumental in the business development, where she has overseen the introduction of various products, which include the exchange-traded funds, as well as the real estate investment trusts. My second speaker on the panel discussion is Mr. Courage Nemaungwe. Courage is an investorpreneur who has got investment interests in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, on the ZSE, as well as global markets like the Australian Stock Exchange. And he has got over 18 years experience in the equities field. So we do hope and believe that we are going to get quite a lot of nuggets from Courage there. Courage is also one of the finalists at the Capital Markets Awards ceremony held last year. And our final panelist is Mr. Kudakwashe Mundowozi. Mr. Kudakwashe Mundowozi is the head of ZSE Markets. He is responsible for the primary and secondary markets, which comprise the new and existing listings, product development, market data, trading and operations here at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So, ladies and gentlemen, to kickstart our panel discussion, we are going to be very gentle and allow our female panelists to be the first to actually come over on board. So let me just once again introduce Sandra, and let her just greet our audience just to test whether she's audible. Sandra, good morning.
Good morning, Eddie. How are you? And good morning, everyone.
I'm all right. Thank you very much, Sandra. I can confirm clearly, we can hear you loud and clear, and we can see you as well. So, Sandra, to kickstart our panel discussion, kindly describe to us the various securities which are listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. I'm sure the people here, they would want to know the various securities which they can actually invest in, which are listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
First of all, thank you so much, Eddie, for organizing this panel discussion, and thank you for having me on this discussion today. So to your question, so on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, we've got 3 different instruments that are currently available for trading. We've got your common shares, we've got the exchange traded funds, and we've got real estate investment trusts. So currently, these are the instruments that are available to trade on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. However, we are not limited to these. We can also trade in bonds, but at the moment, these are the 3 that one can invest in on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandra, for highlighting those different securities that are listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Would you also maybe try to expand to our audience, Sandra, what are the benefits of investing in these types of securities?
All right, thank you, Eddie, for that question. So I'll start with your common equity. So these provide a direct interest in the company. So if you invest in hypothetically ABC company, you've got a direct interest in that company through those common shares that you own. And they also come with voting rights when there are certain matters that need to be voted for that particular company. Common shares, they provide you with such rights. You also get to enjoy gains if you invest in a certain company. This is also a benefit that can also be enjoyed by ETFs as well as REITs. That if there's a change in the price of the particular share, you get to enjoy that gain. You also get to enjoy dividends, which are a token of appreciation that is paid by these companies to their shareholders. And then also investing in common equity means that you've got limited liability. So it means your maximum loss in that particular instrument is limited to the amount that you actually invested. Although we do hope that in all our listed companies, it never gets to that. And then in terms of ETFs, so what happens with ETF is that an ETF is a basket of goods. So for example, I will take your Old Mutual Top 10 ETF. So instead of ordinarily investing in the individual companies of the top 10 companies on the ZSE, you can invest in all of them by simply investing in the Old Mutual Top 10 ETF. You have already diversified your risk, because in one single instrument, which is an ETF, you are already exposed to 10 different companies. So you would have diversified your portfolio. And then it is also low cost. So instead of having to pay trading fees for investing in all the individual companies that are in that top 10 or that are in the CASED agriculture exchange traded ETF, you just invest in one security, which is that particular counter. Once you are invested in that, you get exposure to all the underlying companies. So in terms of the ETFs that we have, we've got the Old Mutual Top 10 ETF. We've got the Morgan & Company Made in Zimbabwe ETF. We've got the Morgan & Company Multi-Sector ETF. We've got the CASED ETF. We've got also the Dadvest Modified Consumer Staples ETF. So you'll discover that in all those ETFs, they offer exposure to different types of companies in just investing in one instrument. So you get to enjoy your diversification in one instrument. You get to enjoy the low costs in that instrument. And another major benefit of exchange traded funds is that there is transparency. So when we're talking of transparency, we're comparing them to some privately traded funds, for example, unit trusts. So within an exchange traded fund, you actually get to know what the underlying instruments are, because on a quarterly basis, they have to update in terms of the holdings that are underlying. So there's a lot of transparency that comes with ETF. They are regulated as issuers, so they have certain disclosures that they have to make. And then in terms of REITs, so with REITs, it gives you a direct exposure to properties. So currently on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, we've got the Tigere REIT. So by just investing in the Tigere REIT, you get exposure to all the properties that are owned by the fund. So as a retail investor, you might not have enough money to invest in one in a mall or a commercial property, because it might require a lot of money. So instead, you want to have an interest in I'll use the Highland Mall. You want to have interest in the Highland Mall, but you don't have the money to pay the down payment for that mall. So what you do is you invest in the REIT. So the REIT owns that mall. So it means the underlying to that REIT is the actual mall. So another benefit of REITs is that they are required by law to distribute at least 80% of their earnings. So in terms of their earnings, they have to distribute 80%. So this means that if you're looking into investing in an instrument that has got regular dividend payments, you might also look into REITs as they distribute at least 80% of their earnings. So I'd say in a nutshell, those are the benefits of the various instruments that are currently available for trading on our board.
All right.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for that elaborative description of the various instruments that are listed on the ZSE. I think it's quite interesting to note that ZSE is now very much diversified in terms of product portfolio. So obviously, risk management can actually be a very easy way to tackle in the light of all these various other instruments that are listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So maybe just to take a hold to our audience, just if you feel you have got any questions relating to what has been discussed thus far, kindly type in on the chat box. Please write your name and then you state your question, and then we'll then be picking as we go. So moving on to you again, Sandra, I think my final question before I move on to the other panelists to you, Sandra, is you have described all these various securities listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. I'm pretty much sure our audience here would want to know what sort of costs are involved in buying, selling, or transacting in these listed securities on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Would you kindly, or would you care to share with us briefly the costs that are involved in transacting in these listed securities on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange?
Thank you, Eddie. So in terms of trading on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, there are costs that are involved when you're buying, and there are costs that are involved when you're selling. I think the major highlight of the cost is that the capital gains withholding tax. So when you are selling, it's charged when you're selling your securities. So when you're selling your securities within 180 days, you are charged a capital gains tax of 4%. So amongst other costs that are related to trading on the ZSE, we've got your broker's commission. And then I will not bore you with figures. I can always avail these figures after the discussion, but I'll just give an overview. So we've got your broker's commission, there is VAT that is charged, there is a CST levy, there is a stamp duty, there is a ZSE levy, there is a SEC levy, there is an investor protection levy, and then there is a capital gains withholding tax. So if you dispose your securities within 180 days, you are charged 4% capital gains withholding tax. But if you dispose after 180 days, that percentage falls to 1.5%. So on the buy side, you've got charges that amount to 1.6930% on your buy order. Then on the sell order, if it's within 180 days, it goes to somewhere around 5.4430%. So it's a bit on the high end because of the capital gains withholding tax. So maybe just to add on to that, the capital gains withholding tax is a statutory requirement. So it's that 4% is charged on the sell side of every security. So there's just a point also to note, these are percentages, which is on the buy side 1.6930%, on the sell side 5.4430. Thank you, Eddie.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was quite clear. So lastly, my dear sister Sandra, I'm sure people who are with us here on this forum, they would also want to know that you've described all these securities, your equities, your REITs, your common stocks. So somebody might want to know, Sandra, how best do I measure the performance of a stock market where these securities are listed? Because I believe that performance measurement of these listed securities is a key tool in terms of me trying to see whether this market is lucrative or it's not. So I believe our audience would be very much interested to know, how does one then be in a position to track or measure the performance of a stock market or these listed securities on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange?
Thank you so much, Eti, for that question. So when it comes to measuring stock market performance, it depends with what you're looking and you want to actually see. So for example, you want to see how the performance was yesterday in terms of was there any up move or down move for the overall market? If you're looking at the overall market, I think the all-share index would be a good indicator as it looks into the performance of the whole market. You might also be looking into the performance of the top 10. So if you want to see how your top 10 performed, you use your top 10 index. You want to look at your top 15, you use your top 15 index. You want to see, maybe say you want to measure liquidity, or you want to see how these counters have been moving, you use your turnover figures. So there are various parameters that you can actually use to measure stock market performance. So in terms of the stock market as a whole, I think the all-share index does justice to measure the performance of how the whole market has performed. So for example, in yesterday's session, the figures the all-share index was at 35,753.99. So you can compare it to the previous day's closing points, which were around 33,715, so that you can actually see the performance. So in terms of the performance of the stock market yesterday, it was on the positive. It gained around 2,000 points, the overall stock market. So this is a performance for all the counters that are actually there. Thank you, Eddie.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandra, for that. Again, to our audience, if you have got any questions, let me just reiterate that kindly type into the chat box. I just received a question, Sandra, in my Google chat. Somebody is asking me that how do I access this information that can assist me in actually tracking the performance of the market? Say I want to see how the all-share is performed. I want to see, maybe I'm somebody who is focused on the top 10 listed firms on the ZSE. How do I access this information so that I'll be able to track the performance and then make an informed financial decision as to whether get involved on these securities listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange?
All right, thank you, Eddie, for that question. It's actually a very good question. So in terms of how you can check where you can find this information. The information is available on our website, but we also offer some additional information. It's a very minimal fee. So you can, if you want to actually experience what happens when the market is open, what you can actually do is you can subscribe for what we call a VOT. So with the VOT, you actually get to log onto the system, you get to see what actually happens live when it's actually happening. But this function only gives you the you are only able to be there as a viewer only. If you want the data to do with all the indices, it's available at a minimum cost, or you can just follow our website. We do publish some of the data on our website. It's there on our website. And if you feel that the one that you're getting on our website is not enough, you can just contact us on data@zse.co.za. You will be able to further assist you. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I'm noticing quite a number of questions popping in. Let me just pick two, and then I'll pick the other questions at the end of this webinar so that we can allow other panelists to come in. So I'll just pose two questions to you, Sandra. The question is coming from Tebukani Moyo. Thank you, Tebukani Moyo, for engaging. So Tebukani Moyo is thanking you, Sandra, for that elaborative presentation. And then I don't know whether it's a she or it's a he, is also asking, what does an index mean? And sort of needing clarity on what the points mean. Sort of what was you mentioned about the all-share index. I think that's where the question is coming from, to say, what is an index? and what do you mean when you say points, etc., etc.? Would you care to share to us on this question, Sandra?
All right, thank you so much, Eddie. So when it comes to computing indices, what we currently on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, we're using the market weighted method. So what we do is we want to be able to get the value, the points that actually gained, because when it comes to the performance of the company, they are all calculated from the market capitalization, on how they gained from the market capitalization. So we also have got computations that we do in order to determine how it is moved. So it all starts from the price of that particular company multiplied by the outstanding shares to get your market capitalization. So if there is an up move in terms of the market capitalization, or other things constant, we divide by what we call a divisor, so that we get the actual points that are there. So the difference between the figure that we get today and the figure that we got yesterday, those are the points that we're talking about. I'm not sure if you understand, if the lady or gentleman understands my explanation. So those points that you're asking, that is the difference between what was there yesterday and what is there today. So that figure is computed using the changes in the actual share prices and outstanding shares, all things constant.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandra, for that response. I'm noticing quite a lot of questions are coming in. Bruce Wojeri, Franks, Bongani, they've posed in questions. I do promise you, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to definitely answer these questions. But in the interest of time and the program lining, allow me just for this moment, ladies and gentlemen, to move on to our next speaker, or our next panelist, who is Courage Nemaunge, whom I introduced earlier on before. So like I've said, Courage is an investorpreneur. Courage has got quite a breadth of experience in the equities field. So Courage, welcome to this panel discussion on investing on the ZSE.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for having me, and thank you, viewers, for joining in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Courage. I'm pretty much sure with your breadth of experience, Courage, our audience would really want to know. I'm sure they are burning. They really want to know what really has been your investment journey on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
Okay, so my investment journey on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange commenced when I was in primary school. This is as early as grade 6, so it is actually passion driven. Where I just got interested in shares from a very tender age. So I started researching into shares, and fortunately, we have an uncle called Emmanuel Kuda Lamek Nemaungwe, who then held our hand and took us into the journey of the stock exchange. So it's been ups and downs. It's been success and failure, but I remained consistent in that journey on the stock exchange. So I think the most interesting part about my investment on the stock exchange started off in 2015 when I started doing investing on a commercial basis. So what it basically meant was, for you to win on the stock exchange, you first need to win in terms of having a surplus. And surplus is having excess of income over expenditure. So it starts off from your very basic budgeting, where you have your income, you then have your expenses, you do your budget, then you remain with a surplus. So what a surplus does is it gives you that access to invest without having some form of pressure, financial pressure, or pressure in terms of commitment. So once you develop these excesses, then you are able to come on the market and invest. So along that journey, I then met a great financial friend of mine called Patson Ngwenya. It's actually very interesting that Patson introduced me to fundamental trading. So together we always sat down, we crafted strategies on how best to to invest from a fundamental perspective. This is where you take your income statement, your balance sheets, your cash flow statements, notes to the financials, statement of changes in equity, you put it into play. So I then changed from investing randomly to then investing calculatively. So that combination of mine with Patson, which is still standing as we speak, made us very, very good investors on the stock exchange. That is on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Then, as you move with investment, you also meet very interesting guys in the industry who also come through with different strategies. One of them is Mr. Jeff Kariwo, who is running Aramis Capital. It's an asset management company. So he comes through and he talks of the barbarians on the gate. So what we basically do is we are there on the gate of ZSE. We are watching the valuation. The moment a counter is undervalued or right at the floor, then we smash. You know, we make sure we buy as much as we can. So with this, we've managed to grow that surplus from $1 to 2 up to etc. And the beautiful thing about investment is yesterday's profit becomes today's capital. So the bigger the capital you have, the bigger you're going to make in terms of return, if you're correct. So this has been that journey which I've taken on the stock exchange. And with that experience, I've invested on the stock market during the hyperinflationary era, during the GNU era, post GNU era, Second Republic, etc. And up to now, I'm still there on the market. So at this very moment, the experience is there, it's vast, and you know, it's been an interesting journey. I hope I answered you there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Courage, for that background description of your journey on the stock markets. So I don't know, Courage, you have mentioned about the strategies that you have learned throughout meeting those other guys with experience in the market. Would you also care to share to us, Courage, what are the investment strategies that you've actually implemented throughout your journey to investing on the ZSE?
Okay, so in terms of strategies, strategies are not static, they're dynamic, especially in our environment in Zimbabwe where things change overnight. So your strategies, you can't have a fixed strategy or a static strategy attacking a dynamic market. It doesn't work that way. So you also need short-term strategies, medium-term strategies, and long-term strategies, which go hand in hand with activities happening, be it on the economy, be it on the politics. Yeah, but your strategies are never static. They're always dynamic. Things change every minute. I always tell fellow investors that Zimbabwe is a very fast economy, in my view, because things change overnight. They change very fast. So strategies, looking at short-term strategies, I'll just give an example of a short-term strategy, which is at play at the moment. The moment any company announces that it's crossing over to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, it automatically gets bullish on the stock exchange. So to our layman viewers, what we mean is immediately the price starts going up, demand immediately just comes. So, you know, going on the stock market looking for an immediate return, you can target companies which are transitioning to the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. That's a short-term strategy. So you can't say in the next 5 to 10 years we'll have that as a strategy. That just does not work. So that's the first strategy. Then the other strategies which are there, which I personally put more focus or more weight on, is what I call harnessing your resources, having a surplus. So before we even come to the stock market, implementing that strategy and that strategy working, first the finance should be there. The excess should be there. And for that excess to be there, you need to be able to harness your resources. So whatever activities you're doing in the economy, you need to get to a point where we implement or we wear the Indian jacket, where we just have money sitting around waiting for investment. The problem with most of the guys, indigenous or local investors, is that the moment they have money, they immediately want to push it out somewhere. I'll give you an example. When I bought my first car, the moment it had a full tank, I was just looking for a journey. So where am I going? So just because the car has a full tank, I was always looking for a journey. So that's not the way we're supposed to do it. Once we have cash, it doesn't mean we have to spend it. At times, just put it aside, harness it, and relax. Because one day an opportunity will come, and that opportunity can come from whichever direction. And I'll then jump into the next strategy, which I personally use. This one is a short-term, medium, and long-term investment strategy, which is a hot topic, and it's basically politics. So politicians have their role, which they play in the economy, in the society, etc., in a country. Then we, as investorpreneurs, also have our roles which we play. So their calling is politics, our calling is investment. So you'll find that politicians, because of the way they introduce policy, implement it, or change it, at times it happens haphazardly. It creates quite some panic and friction on the market. To me, that's a strategy because people panic whenever shares are going down or whenever a policy is introduced. A good example is the gold coins. The gold coins were introduced and they made quite some noise on the market because the last clause in the introduction of gold coins allowed the local currency to be able to procure gold coins. So this means you divert all that pressure of the local currency going to the exchange. So that caused a massive bear run. And once that happens, once a bear run comes, you definitely get to your lows. So this is one thing I'm also good at. I know the laws of the companies on the stock exchange. So you look at your deltas, your Econet, your EcoCash, your Seedquest. The moment it hits your lows, you start getting in. So politicians do play a big role, which affects investments on the market. It depends how you take it. You can take it as a strategy, and it actually works for you. Because for me, the golden rule is buy low, sell high. So for us to get that low, the politicians do play a major role, especially the season we are in elections. They also do play that particular role. So these are some of the things you need to know when you're getting onto the market. After that, you also need to be great at calculations. When you take a balance sheet, you should be able to calculate your net book value in less than 5 minutes. It should be done because at times the market is live. You don't have time to place an order and calculate it at the same time. So you need to have numbers on your fingertips. You need to be a good number cruncher. So once you're able to do this, then you will definitely win on the market. I just hope I answered you there in terms of strategies. So strategies are basically cyclical. They're not static. They're dynamic, and they are not short term. They are not only medium term or long term. They vary. Thank you, Mkomed.
All right. That was quite elaborative, quite insightful, and thank you very much for that, Komakarich. So I think
Sure.
before I move on to the next questions that I have for you, Komakarich, allow me to just pick one question which is coming from the audience. So it's coming from Bruce Gopher. I think it's also related to the strategies. So Bruce is asking, we are approaching elections, and what's your strategy in terms of money not yet invested and shares held?
Okay, thank you, Bruce. So, in terms of shares held, okay, What you do is when you get on the exchange, before you place money on a counter, you need to know to have a clear investment objective. And your investment objective should tell you what price you're getting into, what quantity you're buying, and what price you're expecting to sell whatever security you're having. Then the moment you have this investment objective in place, you then need to factor in the charges which Sandra was touching on. There are issues to do with capital gains tax, there are issues to do with commission, brokers commission, ZSE levy, CSD levy, and the like. So with shares held, it purely depends when you bought them, what price you bought them at, and what your plan is with that particular company. So personally, I am holding some stake on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And yeah, I balance between holding cash and having shares. So going into the election, I personally prefer holding much of that money as liquid cash. Because in elections, there is so much uncertainty. Like we said, it's time for politicians to do what they do. It's their calling, it's their job, it's their role. So in terms of shares held, it depends. Are you in a profit? Are you in a loss? Then that helps you to see what exactly you're going to do. Then in terms of funds which haven't been placed on the market, it's all to do with valuations. Yeah. So you should do your valuations. Then those valuations will guide you to, and they show you whether it's time to get in, or it's time to hold those particular funds. And in terms of valuation, once you have that value, you still need to factor in environment we're operating in. Yeah, so you can't ignore the fact that we are in 2023. You can't ignore that the election is the biggest fundamental which affects stocks. So before you jump in, it's best to calculate and factor that in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Courage, for that response. I hope Bruce has been answered there. And then there's a follow-up question as well from Nyashaidzi Samuka. So she or he is asking what methods can be used for valuations for laymen. I think it's just a follow-up to the valuations you've mentioned about. So the person is asking what method can be used for valuations. I think relating to a layman, probably somebody who's just learning to start to invest on the ZSE.
So in terms of valuations for laymen, if you are a layman and you put layman money, you're going to make a layman return. So I always encourage people to challenge themselves to graduate. We all started as laymen, but you need to move from being layman to running on the market. It's not difficult. It's a matter of investing 1 hour of your time in a day. After 5 years, you're going to be one of the top people in the country understanding that particular topic, regardless of which area, be it investment, be it sports, be it music. If you invest 1 hour a day for the next 5 years, you're going to be one of the top people in the country. So for laymen's, I'm really not sure, because now it's an uneven playing field if you're talking of laymen's, because you are going to come with your layman valuation and you're going to meet me head on when I'm using my strategies. So highly likely you will end up a pig. You'll get slaughtered and you will never want to return on the market. So I challenge you to jump straight into the deep end and start your valuations with technical analysis. And in Zimbabwe, technical analysis, the major instrument which I saw which works is price action, where you're monitoring the price from 5 years back to now into the future. And with price action, again, you also need to factor in the exchange rate, because the price of Delta 4 years ago and the price of Delta today looks really, really great in terms of return on investment. But once you factor in inflation and issues to do with exchange rates, then you will see a normal graph. So you also need to know how to factor in the exchange rate in your valuation on technical analysis on price action. The moment you do that with technical analysis, you're done and you're dusted. Then from there, you then need to look at fundamental analysis. So with fundamental analysis, the advice I can give laymen as we are starting, just focus on, if you look at any price sheet from any stockbroker, which is distributed at the end of the trading session, right at the right column, you will see instruments which are written there. There is PE, there is PB, there is market cap, and the like. Those units, you can use them for fundamental analysis for a start. So you should know what a PE ratio means. It's a price to earnings ratio. And to our layman, we are saying, if you put $1 on a company, how much earnings are you going to get out of your dollar? So if the PE ratio is 3, for example, it means for every $1 you're going to put, highly likely you're going to make $3. If the PE ratio is 3, it means for you to make $1, you are supposed to invest $3. That's what it means. So you need to understand these terms: PE ratio, PB ratio, price to book ratio, which basically compares the price on the market versus the book value of the company. So the PB ratio, simple things. If it's greater than 1, it means the company is overvalued. If it's under than 1, it means the company is undervalued. If it's equal to 1, it means the company is properly valued. So there are many factors which affect these ratios, and one of them is the environment you're operating in. It doesn't mean if the company is worth $10, it's supposed to be valued at $10. There are a lot of things which affect. For example, Dairy Board, they produce ice creams, they produce yogurts. Those products are best consumed in summer. So you'll find that in summer, their valuation could be higher compared to winter. So there are many aspects which affect valuations of companies. So for laymen, when it comes to fundamental, study your price to earnings ratio, study your price to book ratio, study your debt to equity ratio. These ratios will help you to have an idea of what's going on. Also study the earnings per share, study the dividend yield, which basically means for every $100 we put in, how much of that $100 are we getting as a dividend? So these are the things you can look at as a layman. Yeah, but highly likely you're going to be brutalized by the professionals. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Courage. I'm sure Nyasha has been quite answered on that one. Thank you very much for touching it so broadly. So I'm picking just one last question for you, Courage, which is coming on from our audience as well. So the person is asking, how much are the share prices on the ZSE reflective of the underlyings? So I think the person here, what they really want to ask is whether the share prices on the ZSE is quite reflective of the true underlyings or the company performance, since you've been mentioning of all those fundamentals, your PE ratios, etc., etc. So I think the person is trying to ask whether we are in that sort of situation where we can call ourselves a perfect market, imperfect market, in terms of asset pricing on the ZSE versus what is actually obtaining on the underlyings. I don't know how best would you try and assist this fellow of ours, Courage.
Okay, so in terms of our prices and reflecting to the underlying assets, I would say prices on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange are extremely undervalued. Now I'm speaking on a long-term basis. Why do I say so? You realize that from as early as 2000 up to now, we've been having quite some capital flight. Well, government and politicians do what they do, which they think is best for the interests of their citizens and their people. So you'll find that foreign investors and quite a number of investors started pushing their funds out. As a result, our companies became extremely undervalued. we got to a point where the whole stock exchange was valued at about 3 billion US dollars, but MTN alone in South Africa was valued at 25 billion. So if you're looking at it from a broad perspective, we are completely undervalued. And worse off, we're in an election year, so people will continuously be selling and taking strategic positions. So we're completely undervalued. But how do we invest in such an environment? The way I invest on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange as a long-term strategy is purely looking at Zimbabwe pre-2000 era. So I'm looking at Zimbabwe as a breadbasket, because if we get our politics right, if we get our economy back on its feet, we're going to have those valuations back again. So we're supposed to understand that Zimbabwe is right at the epicenter of SADC. What do we mean by this? It means for us to, for you to produce anything and distribute it across the region at the lowest possible value. It's going to be the best place to place your manufacturing plant is Zimbabwe. So as a result, these are the kind of assets I'll be looking at. We're strategically positioned to distribute at the shortest possible distance within the Southern African region. What I mean is, if you produce anything in Durban, distributing it across to Angola, you're going to have quite a number of your profits eaten by the distribution in terms of the distance. If you produce it in Namibia, to take it as far as Malawi, you're going to be hit again in terms of moving your product logistics-wise. So Zimbabwe is right at the epicenter of SADC. That's an advantage. This also goes down along the aviation line. So Zimbabwe can launch airlines which then shoot into the region at the lowest possible cost in terms of Jet A1 fuel for flights. And I think a company which has taken advantage of this is FastJet. FastJet now goes to Kruger, Joburg, Kariba, Vic Falls, and I'm sure very soon they'll be hitting Binga. They're also now pushing straight into the region. So it's an untapped market, and it has so much potential. It also goes back to do with prices versus what's happening on the market. So once we start having this normalization in terms of our economy, we'll eventually milk more. A case study is when we had the Government of National Unity, which was birthed by the Global Political Agreement in 2008. Delta Corporation, for example, was going for 14 cents. Then by 2013, Delta had risen to $1.50. So that shows you the discrepancy in terms of value of the company and the price at which it's operating. I think the sweetest example on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange to date was CFI. At the beginning of the GNU, it was going for 1 cent a share. Then by the end of the GNU, it was going for OTC, over-the-counter trading. It was now trading for about $1.10. So it had multiplied 110 times, meaning whoever had planted $10,000 harvested 1.1 million in 10 or 1.1 million. So that all those super profits can and only will be harvested because there is a disparity between price and the underlying asset. So in my view, we're extremely undervalued. Even if you look at a company like Delta, I love Delta so much. You do the financials, you incorporate their business in Zambia and their business in South Africa, and then you look at the price at which it's operating. At some point, it was 17 cents. So you can imagine 17 cents for a share of Delta. The last time we did a valuation and a comparison and pegging it to a product, we realized that one Delta share should be equivalent to a pint of Castle, which is going for around $1. Yet you see it as low as 17 cents at some time. So the prices on the market are not reflective of the underlying asset. It's not only a stock exchange problem, it's a national problem. even if you look at the value at which we extract and export, we're not getting the best which we're supposed to get. So there is need to work on it so that our prices, which we operate on the market, are reflective of the underlying asset, and how that is addressed. It can easily be addressed when the economy starts functioning, which means people now have more disposable income. And with more disposable income, you will find much of that money flowing to the stockbrokers. And once it arrives at the stockbrokers, you then find demand coming on the market. And once demand is there, then the prices on the market will start moving towards the correct valuation of these counters. So even our stockbrokers, in their vast majority, instead of them fighting for the small piece of cake which is there, you will find them, now having an equal cake in terms of commissions, brokerage commissions, and the like. Because if you talk to stockbrokers, it's a real fight. It's not a joke. And this is as a result of the way the economy is, and I think perception of investors towards Zimbabwe at the moment. So these seminars are good. These webinars are good because the moment we come in, we start showing people what may happen in the future and the opportunities which are there. We will definitely harvest. So yeah, much work needs to be done so that the underlying assets truly reflect on the board on the stock exchange as we trade.
Okay, thank you so much, Courage, for that comprehensive answer. I just noticed that there was a hand which was raised. I think I would love to give an opportunity. I think that was Tino Tender. I'm not sure whether Tino Tender, you are still there. Could you kindly unmute and then please go ahead with your question or your contribution?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask Courage, on the undervaluations, you are saying right now the Zimbabwean market is undervalued. Does it mean we don't need to take, if someone wants to do long-term trading, does it mean we don't need to set more on the current price? We just need to buy, or there's need for consideration that they may not rise, the value may not rise in the future?
Okay, Tino.
Thank you, Tino. I'm not sure, Courage, you've managed to capture that.
Yes, that's a good question coming through from Tino. Yes, on a long-term basis, the market is undervalued, but it doesn't mean you randomly buy. Courage didn't say randomly buy. Courage said the market is undervalued, but you also need to time it. Timing is critical. The importance of timing is once you buy shares right at the bottom, you can afford to close your computer and even sail the Mediterranean and disappear for 3 months without worrying what exactly is going on the exchange. And for you to understand these laws, the lowest prices in terms of valuation, then we would need to speak more, because I know them offhand. You'll find that, for example, Delta is currently going for probably 60 cents a share, but its lowest price in history has been 17 cents a share. So in the environment we are at, for me, it's not shocking that Delta will slowly move towards the 17 cents, though it's very difficult and it's going to be very difficult. But there is no problem buying Delta around 25, 30 cents. So timing is very important. Just because the companies are undervalued, it does not mean you randomly buy because you have the money. Timing is extremely important. An example I gave was the gold coins. Another example is the introduction of the capital gains tax. What then happened is prices were knocked down viciously because the Ministry of Finance realized that there's a lot of speculative behavior happening on the ZSE. So for them, from a ministry perspective, in order to cap that, they introduced the capital gains tax, which is as high as 40% if you sell below 270 days. So all these policies which are introduced by the ministry, by the government, by politicians, at times it could be even statements coming out of the ruling party, they do affect the way shares are traded. So for you holding cash, it is an opportunity to jump on them if you have the proper timing. So yes, counters are undervalued, but it doesn't mean randomly buy or buy indiscriminately. Still, there's an issue of timing, which is also a strategy. I hope I answered you there, Tina.
All right.
Answered.
Okay. Thank you so much, Courage. Tino has confirmed that he has been very much answered. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, allow me to move on to our final panelist. And please, if you have got any questions, please continue to type them in the chat box. We do promise you that we are going to respond to all the questions, either through this webinar or as follow-ups subsequent to this engagement, because this is the reason why we have actually come up with this webinar. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me thank Courage for that discussion, for those insights that he has managed to share with us. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to welcome on stage the ZSE head of ZSE Markets, Kudakwashe Mndowozi. So Kudakwashe Mndowozi is going to speak to us about a platform which we believe is going to give us access to these securities which we have mentioned, which are listed on the ZSE. So let me welcome Kuda and see whether he is audible to our audience. Kuda, welcome.
Thank you, Eddie.
All right, I think we can hear you loud and clear. So Kuda, I'm sure our people would really want to know what is ZSE Direct?
All right, thanks, Eddie, once again, and that's a great question. So look, how it all started is ZSE Direct was an idea that we had that we wanted to create a simpler way to buy and sell shares on the official exchange, which is the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And from that, then the idea was birthed. So what is ZSE Direct? So ZSE Direct is a web-based platform that was specifically designed with the retail investor in mind to make the process of accessing the stock market easier for first-time investors, especially on the ZSE. So ZSE Direct also acts as a pathway between the client and the registered stockbrokers, making accessing the stock market simpler for the first-time investors. In addition to that, it also allows them to have the full experience of investments through having their own investment account through a stockbroker and also having their own CSD account. I think by and large, Eddie, that's what ZSE Direct is.
Okay, thank you very much, Kuda, for that description of ZSE Direct. So somebody might want to know, how does one get to register on this ZSE Direct platform?
Okay, Eddie, I think before I get to the registration part, or maybe I'll take it after. Registration is quite easy. You just go on the website, the www.zsedirect.co.zw, or you can download a mobile app, which is on iOS or on the Play Store. After that, you open the app or open the web page where you click the register tab. From the register tab, you can enter your general information, which is and you create a password. After you create your password, it will enter your banking details because for you to trade on the stock market, you do need to have a bank account or a registered money platform such as EcoCash. And then after that, you need to upload your KYC, which is just your know your client file. And this is ideally a picture of your ID, a picture of yourself, a selfie will do, and proof of residence, which is not more than 3 months old. After that, a verification email will be sent to you, and you just click on the email, and then you start. Your account is ready for approval. Now, I mentioned that the process of the bank. So on the bank, we do take a lot of things. We can take SimSwitch, you can take Zipit, we can take EcoCash. As long as it's registered with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, we should be able to take it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Kuda. Thank you for that. Let me jump so that we make it as quite engaging as possible. Let me jump to the chat box before I proceed with my question. So Franks, who is our guest, is asking, Kuda, can't we have a platform where we can see the live movement of shares? That is to say the prices, the volumes, etc.
Thank you, Eddie. So if you look at how the ZSE Direct portal works, it's like a view-only terminal that we've discussed. You can actually see the movement of shares. One of the key features that's on ZSE Direct is market depth, which shows you the top 10 sales and top 10 purchases, or top 10 bids and offers, which are the which go through. So through this, you can monitor the market and see. It will be actually live, the data feed that you get from there.
Okay, thank you, Kuda. I do hope Franks has been answered there. So my other question to you, Kuda, relating to ZSE Direct, who really is allowed to trade on the ZSE Direct in terms of age, nationality, residence, or maybe Zimbabwe who is in the diaspora, or maybe any other foreign national? Could you kindly just elaborate to us in terms of access by those parameters, age-wise, residency, etc., etc.?
Okay, so one of the parameters that we need is a bank account. So because you need a local bank account to open, you generally then have to be a Zimbabwean, or you have a Zimbabwean bank account. Because the ZSE trades in Zim dollars, there is no provision for a foreign bank account to be linked to that platform. In terms of trading, you need to be at least 18 years of age, which is the legal age for trading. If you're not yet 18, you need to trade through a guardian, and that probably would mean that the account has to be in the guardian's name. It can't be in your own name. I think really these are the people who are eligible for trading, but it's to encourage retail participation, especially in Zimbabwe. You would agree, I think, if you were following Karen's discussion, he mentioned that there's a gap which has been evolved in Zimbabwe, where foreigners used to take center stage in terms of investing on the market. Now, with the flight of foreigners out of Zimbabwe, there was a gap that we identified, and we have encouraged as much as we possible for the locals to come in and fill this gap. Hence, we've got more retail participation that's now in the country. Sorry about that. So, you would also agree with me that before we only had foreigners, high net worth individuals, as well as corporates participating on the exchange. But with the introduction of ZSE Direct, we've seen quite a number of retail clients coming in, especially in Zimbabwe. But that said, if you have a Zimbabwean bank and you're living outside Zimbabwe and your bank is linked to your ZSE Direct account, and you can fund your account online, you will be able to trade from anywhere you are, as long as you have the app with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kuda. I'm sure that part of your answer is managed to answer Tatenda and Cleopas, who had actually posed the very same question in the chat box. I've just noticed there was a hand up from Frank. So Frank, I don't know whether you're still there, and if you are, kindly please unmute and please proceed to ask Kuda on what you want to know about the ZSE Direct.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm on a bus and my background is a bit noisy, but I hope you guys will be able to hear me. So I had a nasty experience, I think, about 3 months ago with the ZSE Direct. Like, I actually transferred my money from my bank to my account. But then the problem is the money wasn't credited. My account wasn't credited. And I wanted to invest in Delta at that point in time, but I could not invest in Delta because the money wasn't credited on my ZSE account. You understand? So I don't know if there is anything that you guys do. Probably if your systems are down, we're just asking as clients, just inform us that your systems are down, so that we actually know that we're not supposed to actually upload our funds for the sake of us not losing. So I don't know if you can do something about that.
Thank you for that. Definitely, we need to communicate with you when such things happen. But just out of curiosity, was this a normal transfer or it was a zip it?
Well, it was an internal transfer from ZB to ZB to ZB account. So it took me almost 2 weeks for that money to be credited on my ZSE account. So, and in 2 weeks, so many things happen.
Okay, I've taken note of this, but we also encourage people that when you fund your account, if it doesn't reflect within 24 hours, if you just send your POP to the ZSE Direct email, it will be actioned and will be credited immediately. But I've taken note of your suggestion and your displeasure, which we will then also improve on the communication when the systems are down. But I still encourage you, whenever you make a transfer on the ZSE Direct platform, if it doesn't reflect within 24 hours, please send a POP to the ZSE Direct team. There's a dedicated team who are there and ready to assist you immediately. There's also, I think there's also a number which you can call, and you can be assisted immediately, because as you said, you write there that anything can happen. Even in 24 hours, the market can change, and you want to take advantage of every opportunity, which is one of the advantages of ZSE Direct, that we try for you to remove the barrier where you have to go through a broker, send them an email. After you send them an email, they then start actioning. We want to cut that lead time, and we want it to be more efficient for you. But thank you, I take note of that.
All right, thank you, Kuda. I hope Frank's has been answered, but I'm seeing his hand is still up. Is it a new hand, Frank?
No, my bad.
It's okay. I think it was an old hand. So I think your last part of the question, Kuda, also addresses a question that has been posed in the chat box by Tonga, who is asking, is there a customer service line to assist registered queries? Yeah, the service line, I think Kuda has mentioned that it is available. So I think after this webinar, we are going to sort of send these details as well as other questions which have been posed by the other guests. And then I think there's one final question for you, Kuda, from Bruce. So Bruce is asking, is it possible to buy shares for my kids who are below 18? And if it's possible, what is the procedure and the paperwork that is needed?
Okay, Eddie. So like I said before, to participate on the ZSE Direct, you have to be at least 18 years old. If you're not 18, the account goes into your name. However, this does not stop you from buying shares for your children who are below the age of 18, but you need to go through a broker. So you can register through a broker. When you register as the guardian. As the guardian, you register your bank account, because third-party payments are not allowed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So you register as the guardian, you will be allowed to fund that account. But you must also take note, when you start buying shares for a minor, you are not allowed to disinvest from that account. They can only disinvest after they turn 18. You're allowed to rebalance the account, but you're not allowed to take money out. You're only taking it in, and then when your children come of age, they then can make decisions whether they want to continue disinvesting that. I hope you are answered.
Yeah, thank you, Kuda, for that response. I do hope that Bruce has been satisfactorily answered there. I think there is one last question. My bad, Kuda. Questions are coming all over. But I think in the interest of time, allow me to just pose in one more question from our guests. So it's coming from Vincent. So Vincent is asking, does one need to write to transfer secretaries each time there is a dividend payment or the funds are transferred to my ZSE Direct account?
Okay, so I think in my earlier submission, if you remember, I said when you open your account, you open a broking account, you open a CSD account, you also open a transfer secretary account. So when you buy shares, all your details are sent to the transfer secretary, who then register you on their share register, because transfer secretaries are custodians of the share register. Once your details are there, anytime a dividend is issued, they use the records that are on file. So, for example, if you put your ZimDollar account and your Nostro account on there, every time a dividend is paid by any company that is managed by that transfer secretary, it will be transferred to your account on file. That's why it is recommended, if you, in the event you change your account, you should notify the transfer secretaries of any changes. But the short answer to your question is you do not need to write to them every time a dividend is issued.
All right, Kuda. Thank you very much for tackling that. Let me go through some of the questions. Pardon me, our guests. I might not be able to see all of the questions, but I do promise you that we are going to make an effort at least to formally respond to each and every question that is coming through. So there's a question that has been posed by Wojeri. So he's asking, hi guys, as counters are moving to VFX, what changes are you making to the indices? So I don't know whether Kuda or Sandra, you would want to tackle that one.
Okay, I can take it. So every time counters are moved to the VFX, in terms of the indices, we have what we call a rebalancing that we do. So we remove counters that day. We also have a reserve list. For example, the top 10. We already know if a counter in the top 10 moves, there's already a counter number 11, number 12, number 13, which is on the reserve list. And we know that it will then become or be moved into the top 10 index or into what index is there, and then we rebalance them, and then we distribute this to the market.
All right, thank you for that, Kuda. I do hope that Washeri has been answered there. And then Bongani Mujaji is also thrown in a question. Asking that, are there any plans by the ZSE to introduce options trading?
Plans to introduce option trading are there. I think with obviously as the exchange, we are looking to always evolve and bring in new products to the market. So I think in due time we'll be making announcements when we've got all the frameworks in place. But obviously as your exchange, we are planning to continue to diversify these things and bring more and more products to you. But this is not in the near future. This is mid to long term.
Okay, thank you very much, Kuda, for that response. Another one is just popping in, and let me just thank you, our audience. You are quite interactive. This is the sort of engagement that we want, and we will attempt in the time that we have to respond to all of the questions you're posing through. So I don't know whether this one is directed to Kuda or it's directed to Sandra. So one of the guests, unfortunately, I can't see the name. They're asking whether it's possible or are we allowed to change a broker? Maybe you can tackle it both on the ZSE Direct, or maybe somebody's coming directly through a broker. Maybe you can assist them.
So I'll take the ZSE Direct and Sandra will take on the broker side. On the ZSE Direct, you are allowed to change your broker. In the event you want to change your broker, you write to us and inform us of your intention of changing the broker, and then we change the broker on the system, and then you continue with the same portal. We try to make sure you continue with the same CSD number, although you might need to have a sub account and your portfolio is moved to that sub account, but you are well within your rights to choose a different broker anytime.
All right. So thank you. Sandra, could I say you tackle the second part?
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you, Kuda, for the submissions. So when you're trading directly with a stockbroker, you are allowed to change a broker. You can switch from Z broker to D broker. You are allowed to do that. The decision of which broker you want to trade remains with you. So even when you're trading with directly with a broker, you can choose to change and trade with another broker at your own terms and conditions.
All right, thank you, Sandra. So there's another question now which is coming. I think this one is directed to Courage. I do hope Courage is still with us.
Yes, D, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So, Courage, there's a question which is coming here. Somebody is asking, how did you manage to make the transition? They're saying, as an investor, how did you manage the transition from the GNU era to the hyperinflationary era? I think it's coming on the basis of the background you have given about your journey. When you mentioned that you have been in the GNU era, and then you've also seen the hyperinflationary era. So the guest here is asking, how have you managed the transition as an investor to say during the GNU, it was maybe a USD denominated time frame into a Zimbabwe denominated investing season. So they're asking sort of techniques, strategies, or approach that you have used to stay relevant and still investing on the ZSE as we come to transition from one sort of economic era into the other.
Okay, so transitioning from the GNU era into the hyperinflationary era was never easy. It's never easy because we are still in that transition, because our market is predominantly in the local currency, which is the Zimbabwean dollar. So, like I said before during the presentation, strategy in Zimbabwe is not static. It's always dynamic. So as events occur, you also need to fine-tune your strategy and make sure it applies and works and conforms with what's going on the market. So just a hint I can give my brother or sister who asked the question is, during the GNU era, that's where we saw the highest prices on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, which were not obviously fueled by hot air. And what I mean by hot air is there is a point in time where people had very few investment destinations in Zimbabwe when you had local currency. So all that money was just pushed onto the stock exchange. So the advent of gold coins, etc., then somehow corrected that. So the highest prices which we got on the ZSE were during the GNU era. So it's now your obligation as an investor to then peg that the current prices to those previous high prices. So the moment you factor in your exchange rate, you'll then see is the counter overvalued or undervalued? Does it have potential for growth, etc. So a clear example is Delta. Its highest price in the GNU era was $1.50. And as we speak right now, it's trading around 50 cents. So that difference, 50 to $1.50, shows you that we've gotten an opportunity to grow of 200%. So when you find the factors right and the timing right, you then strike. So for me personally, GNU, I use it to peg the highest prices. Then the hyperinflationary era presents an opportunity because it's not everyone who keeps up with the calculator, calculating the prices on a daily basis to check whether there's an opportunity or there is no opportunity. So for me, yeah, that's what I basically do to compare the two periods. They actually guide me to the factor which I was talking of technical analysis, which is price action, which basically shows me your highest price, your lowest price, and the difference between the two is the range. So the hyperinflation versus the GNU era, shows you where exactly the price is. So it becomes very easy to act and make money out of it. I hope I answered you there.
All right. Thank you, Courage. I do hope my brother or sister has been answered there. So I think we have exhausted all the questions that are in the chat box, and I will open the floor to our audience. Is there anyone who might want to pose a question or just a comment or any suggestion? All right, I think it means, okay. I see Philip, you have raised a hand there. Kindly unmute and go ahead, Philip.
Okay, thank you so much for the platform. I'm really learning a lot. So I'm trading on the ZSE using C trade. So I've got some challenges that I've been facing in terms of trying to buy some stocks there on the ZSE because I tried to buy for like Econet and EcoCash, but I don't know what's happening. I've been failing to buy those stocks, but I've seen that I've also managed to buy stocks for other companies, but I'm still failing to buy for Econet. Maybe there's something that I don't understand. Maybe you can assist me on that.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I think Kuda will be able to tackle on that.
Thank you, Philip. Unfortunately, C-Trade is not our platform. So perhaps for me, I can only tell you about what we understand, which is ZSE Direct. And then I can assure you on ZSE Direct, you can buy any counter anytime the market is open, as long as your wallet is funded.
Okay, no, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Philip, for that question. I also noticed that there's Trish who has a hand up. Kindly go ahead, Trish.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, the panelists. I just wanted to find out what are the next steps once one has opened the ZSE Direct account. I'm very new to this whole stock exchange trading platform, so I don't know what would be my next steps now.
Okay, thank you, Trish. I will direct that question again to Kuda.
Thank you, Trish. So once you've opened your ZSE Direct account, the next step would be to fund your wallet. And you can fund your wallet through any means. You can do a transfer to the accounts provided. You can do a zip it. You can do an EcoCash. You can do my cash. But what you need to do is after you do this, you just need to send a POP to the guys if the amount you funded hasn't reflected within 24 hours. And some of the things you see, I think for first-time investors is some of the key features on the ZSE Direct is you can see your portfolio where it allows you to view your holdings, whatever you bought. It also shows you what is available in the event you want to sell. And then it also shows you the value of your portfolio, whether you've gained or you've lost. Like I said before, it also shows you market depth. The market depth feature shows you the 10 best orders on both the buy and the sell orders. And this feature enables you to quickly assess the status of other orders in the market before you can make a decision whether to buy or sell. So I think these are some of the things you get after you finish your registration. And in terms of how to buy, I'll quickly walk you through. After you finish setting up your account, you log into your account or web portal, or you go through the mobile app. If you want to buy, you click on the buy tab, select what you want to buy, whether it's on the regular board or the odd lot board, or it's an ETF or a REIT. You enter the quantity you want. It will show you if you have enough money. It will show you have enough money to buy. If you don't have enough money, it will ask you to either choose a lower number or to fund your wallet so that you can buy the amount you want. After that, your price will be guided by what we call the market depth or a range, which shows you the maximum percentage you can put, which is 15% up from the opening price or 15% down from the opening price. You then select your time in force, which is, do you want to make it an day order or do you want to make it GTC, which is good till cancelled? And then finally, you place your order and confirm your order. In the event you're doing a sell, it's almost identical, the order that I've set through, and then you confirm whether your sell order. So this will be the next steps that you find, and then you'll be able to monitor the market through your portal, and you'll be able to monitor if you're actually making gains or losses from the decisions of the securities you've bought.
All right. Thank you, Kuda. I do hope Trish has been answered. The floor is still open. Ladies and gentlemen, should you have anything, any question for our panelists or any point of discussion? Okay, I see BM there. I'm not sure what BM stands for, but anyway, please go ahead.
I have a question. I have a question in terms of the issue of the ZSE. Will it look into issues of Bitcoin and other digital currencies in terms of trading? Or what's your general opinion in terms of traders? Because sometimes we are lured into trying to invest in the stock market, and then people also look into these other digital currencies. So I want to find out the opinion of Courage on that issue of investing in Bitcoin, but also the position of the ZSE in terms of incorporating these digital currencies.
All right. Thank you, Victor. So thank you, BM, rather. Thank you, BM. Kindly hold on, Victor. Let us allow the panelists to address the question. So, because Courage has been quiet just for a while, allow me to ask him to tackle the other part and then move on to Kuda to deal with the second part of the question.
Hi, Eddie. There was quite some interruption. I didn't get the question from my end.
Okay, I think the guest was basically asking on your opinion in terms of investments on digital currencies.
Okay, so my problem is I'm very consistent in what I do. So at this very moment, I focus on the equities, which is the stock exchange. On digital currencies, it's something new, something which has come up, and I looked at it. I think it falls in the same way which we analyze stocks. If you're able to do a valuation and you're able to pen a price, then you peg the price at which it's operating or trading on the market versus the fundamental price which it's supposed to be at, then you're able to either buy or sell or hold depending on what you find out from your valuation. But I've never invested on digital currencies, blockchain and the like. I'm backward like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Courage. So Kuda, kindly address the second part of the question. I'm not sure whether you managed to capture it.
Yes, I've managed to capture it. Thank you, Eddie. And I would say, Courage, you're not backward. I think you're just cautious, because one of the problems is these bitcoins are not regulated here in Zimbabwe. So it's quite difficult for you to implement something that is not regulated. So we are looking, like I said, we're quite innovative, but we also want to bring things that are tangible to the exchange. So we're probably going to look at bringing CFDs for you. But in terms of blockchain, this is something that is not in our pipeline at this very moment.
Okay, thank you, Kuda. I see Victor, you have got a hand up. Please go ahead.
No, sorry, I'd forgotten to raise it down. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think I'll just now allow just 2 more questions, if there are any, from our audience before we round it up. The floor is still open, ladies and gentlemen, just for 2 more questions. Okay, I think there are no more questions. So I think that actually concludes our panel discussion. And I do believe that we have had an opportunity to learn from the experience of Mr. Nimangwe, to also understand as well from the side of the ZSE on various instruments that are traded, the various platforms, which can also be used to access these various instruments. So we've also observed from our audience that there is still a gap in terms of understanding on how the market operates. And let me also take this opportunity to reiterate that the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange will continue on this investor awareness campaign to ensure that people are adequately canvassed in terms of investing on the stock market. So let me also invite you to another webinar, which is actually going to take place during this week, the Global Money Week, on Thursday. So this one will be focusing on investing on the VFX. As you have noticed, we've been focusing mostly on ZSE. On Thursday, we'll be touching on the VFX. So all your questions, your concerns, or anything that you might want to know or learn about the VFX or the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, kindly make a date with us on Thursday, and kindly visit our platforms. We'll also share with you through your respective emails the link to that webinar on Thursday. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking your time to be with us. And our fellow panelists, I thank you very much also for taking your time to be with us.
Thank you.